we are giving away all of these 16 prizes here to celebrate the World Championship, including a signed photo from Raymond van Barneveld and Phil Taylor, which includes a match used dart. Just head over to our Twitter, link in the description, to see our pinned tweet for full details, and don't forget to comment and subscribe. Michael Smith, the world champion, the world number one, defending his title back at Alexandra Palace. It's going to be an interesting tournament from Michael Smith. He's had a bit of an up and down year. He won the PDC World Championship and then won a World Series event not long after. But in terms of ranking TV tournaments, he's made a semi-final of the World Grand Prix since then, and not a lot else. His form has not been very good. He went out in his opening game to Richard Veenstra at the Players' Championship Finals only a few weeks ago, averaging 85. And I think a big reason for this, whether he says it or not, is he switched darts manufacturer from Unicorn to Shot Darts in July. He's been with Unicorn for a long, long time. He says that it's not the darts aren't the issue. But they do look a lot different. They are flying differently, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting to see how much confidence Michael Smith enters this tournament with. He's admitted himself that maybe he's been a bit too relaxed this year, enjoying his World Championship year, taking a bit of time off and maybe not practicing as much as he would normally do. But he's got a big task ahead of him, because as defending champion, he will play on the opening night, either against Kevin Durst or Stowe Bunce. If it is to be Stowe Bunce, who I think will come through that tie, Stowe Bunce made the quarterfinal recently of the Grand Slam tournament where Michael Smith fell at the group stages when he was defending champion in that as well. So Stowe Bunce has got big stage experience. He would have been on the Alexandra Palace stage already if he was to face Michael Smith in that tie. And it could be a very, very tricky tie for Michael Smith. We've not lost a defending champion since John Part since 2009 on the opening night. Could this be a major upset on the cards for the first round of the World Championship? Certainly a danger for Michael Smith.
Think darts and you inevitably think Michael van Gerwen, the devilishly talented Dutchman who is looking to add a fourth World Championship to his trophy cabinet. And who would write him off this year at Alexandra Palace? I mean, it's been a bit of a funny year for him on and off the hockey. He's had a jaw problem that has required a lot of medical attention, seen him take some time away. He's been playing through the pain barrier at times, and he will have further surgery on it in the months ahead. However, he seems to be in quite a good place now going into the World Championship, and this is the creme de la creme for Van Gerwen. This is the tournament that I think he would sacrifice everything else in the year to get here and play well. And that's exactly what he did last year, and ending up runner-up to Michael Smith, who was inspired in the final. But prior to that, Van Gerwen looked like the only winner. He averaged over 100 in all 5 of his matches leading into the final, and blew players away like Chris Dobie and Dimitri Vandenberg. It really was a scintillating Alexandra Palace run from Van Gerwen. However, the fact does remain that he's kind of stuck on 3 world titles. I mean, if you told anyone after his last win in 2019 that he wouldn't be winning any of the next 4, I think they would have laughed at you. However, he has made 2 finals. He had a quarterfinal exit to Dave Chisnall, where Chisnall produced a career best performance. And then he had a withdrawal due to testing positive for COVID in 2022. So you could put a line through that one. What's the lesson? Well, it takes a very, very good performance to get rid of Van Gerwen here at Alexandra Palace. And his year in the circumstances has been pretty good. He won the Premier League, he won the World Series finals, and he lost a further 3 finals. And, you know, when we're talking about somebody that hasn't been at 100% physically, that is an outstanding year, all things considered. He's likely to meet Luke Humphreys in the semi-final. That's the blockbuster showdown that everyone's hoping to see. And I think, even though he lost that Players' Championship finals clash, he'll be quietly encouraged by that because he was dominant for a large phase of the game. If he does get that far and Humphreys gets that far, it will be an absolute classic. But who is going to write Van Gerwen off from winning this? Certainly not me.
Luke Humphreys is the betting favourite for the 2024 World Darts Championship. Now, that's not something that you'd have expected to hear at the start of 2023, particularly for those Christmas-only darts fans. But Humphreys' position at the top of the betting market is absolutely deserved and correct. He's the best player in the world right now. He has been for the last 2, 3, or even 4 months. He's the world number 3. That's a ranking only going in one direction, and that is up. He's won 3 of the last 4 televised tournaments, 2 of them what I call proper majors. The Grand Prix was the breakthrough in October, then the Grand Slam in early November, then the Players' Championship finals in late November. Opponents that he beat in the finals of those tournaments were Gerwyn Price, Rob Cross and Michael van Gerwen respectively. the latter against MVG, winning the Players' Championship finals 11-9 from a position of 9-5 down. A truly remarkable turnaround, winning the last 6 legs against who was at the time a rampant MVG. Humphreys has everything you need, a very, very heavy scoring. He's got doubles that are better than ever. He's got composure, confidence. He fears no one, as that run of final victories will tell you. So yeah, Cool Hand Luke has been threatening to take his game to the next level for a few years now, but 2023 has clearly been a breakthrough year for him. His first major win quickly followed by major wins 2 and 3. He's 3-1 to win the Worlds, which is short enough in my opinion, as the World Championship is a whole different kettle of fish as a tournament. Set play, very long games, the crowd, etc., the biggest stage of all. But Humphreys is a 3-time quarter-finalist at Ali Pali, so he's got plenty of good experience there on the big stage. Will, of course, need to step it up from that. He is the best price, even money, to win his quarter number 4. The bookies think that he should be winning his quarter. He's got to come past the likes of Rids, possibly Searle or Cullen, then Aspinall and the like. He's got to overcome to make it out of his quarter. There's a potential blockbuster semi-final against MVG as well, also down the line. Luke Humphreys can certainly win the World Championships. He's just got to go out and do it.
Peter Wright comes into this tournament after a disappointing 2023 by his very own high standards. He has struggled to perform consistently this year, as evidenced by his performances on the floor. He failed to qualify for the Players' Championship finals a few weeks ago, a tournament where he was defending £100,000 ranking money from a couple of years ago. He did win, however, a title on the Euro Tour earlier this year, and he won the European Championship in October. Might have been a shock to a lot of people, maybe even himself, because he'd not been playing well up until that point. And he really has struggled. It was a second round exit at the World Match Play. Did make the quarter-final of the World Grand Prix, missing 3 match starts to defeat eventual champion Luke Humphreys. But there'll be a lot of pressure on Peter Wright's shoulders. He's been switching darts a lot this year. There's no surprise he does that a lot. But I remember in the US Darts Masters, he actually changed how he threw for a portion of the game because he was that inconsistent, just looking for something to motivate him. What's going to add pressure on for Peter Wright as well is the fact that he is defending £500,000 from winning this tournament 2 years ago. If he was to go out early, he is provisionally the world number 7 after this tournament, so he would plummet down the rankings. There's a lot of pressure on, and he's in a really, really tough quarter off the draw with Gary Anderson, with Gerwen Price. It's going to be a real tough task for Peter Wright, but we know what Peter Wright is like. Form almost doesn't matter with Peter. He's that good of a player. He can turn up and he could win the World Championship. He's that good. If he finds it, if it clicks, he really, really could do well, but he's not coming into this in the best of form. He's 20-1 with the title sponsors to win this tournament, which is what we've not seen from Peter for a long time, and he'll be under a lot of pressure.
Not many players can polarise opinion in the world of darts like Gerwen Price. Even people that don't watch darts tend to have an opinion on him. They either love him or hate him. But it's hard to say whether or not he's misunderstood. I guess it just depends on your point of view. What isn't in any doubt is that he is a live contender to win this World Championship. At his best, Price believes nobody can beat him. And he may be right, although whether he produces that top level enough is questionable. He's certainly in the bracket of Van Gerwen and Humphreys and Anderson when we talk about having spells where he becomes unplayable. That is what, of course, won him the World Championship previously. However, it's worth noting that his World Championship win was behind closed doors due to the COVID pandemic. Price himself says that took a little bit of the shine off the achievement and has talked about how desperate he is to do it again in front of a full house. But we all know the issues he's had with that full house. The Ali Pali crowd are well known for getting on the Welshman's back. They'll be whistling, they'll be booing, and there'll be chants aimed in his direction. And whatever you think of it, you have to factor that into your thoughts because there's no doubting that it has impacted Price in previous years. After he lost a tight match to Michael Smith a couple of years ago, he was quick to take to social media to say that the crowd had cost him the game. And then last year again, a collapse against Gabriel Clemens, losing 5-1 in the quarterfinals, donning the famous ear defenders to no avail. And once again, talk of maybe not returning to Ali Pali. However, he is here. He's back to try and win it again. And it'll take a good performance to stop him, or as Price says, he'll have to beat himself. Those mental demons are sure to be tested, particularly if he has a clash with Gary Anderson, which he is on track to do. Anderson's been in fine form this year, and the crowd will be very pro towards the Flying Scotsman. If Price can overcome that hurdle, possibly he can add a second world title to his ranks.
Nathan Aspinall started the darting year at a low point, still somewhat recovering from a wrist injury and out of last year's World Championships in the last 32, and suffering a little bit of a confidence crisis in a challenging Premier League campaign. But with the testing Premier League done and dusted, Aspinall went on to win a biggie, the World Match Play in Blackpool, grinding away throughout, as usual, nailing the clutch moments and battering Joe Cullen in the semi and Johnny Clayton in the final, a deserved winner. His form since that July triumph has been average by his high standards. He didn't even qualify for the Players' Championships finals, which really, if you think about it, takes some doing, given that Aspinall is the world number 6. Aspinall himself says all roads have led to Ali Pali since July, and he has an excellent record in the World Championships, a 2-time semi-finalist, a handful for anyone on his day. Aspinall is likely to play Ricky Evans in round 2, who is always a threat, but Aspinall would be a strong betting favourite to progress. There's no easy draws nowadays in the world of darts, but Aspinall's draw could have been kinder. The likes of Gurney, Chisnall, Clemens and Humphreys are in his path if he is to go deep in the World Championships. He's 33-1 to lift the title here, and one of a few big names that aren't exactly in flying form as we speak, but could well turn it back on the biggest stage of all.
Danny Noppert, the UK Open champion of 2022. He is the number 7 seed coming into this tournament, and he sort of goes under the radar, I think, does Danny Noppert, because he's not really mentioned as anybody dark horse, and he's not mentioned in terms of being favourite for a title, but his consistency up until this point in his PDC career has got him to that world number 7 spot. He is due provisionally to go up into the top 6 of the world as it stands in the provisional post-Worlds Order of Merit. And his 2023 has been pretty decent as well. He's won 2 titles on the floor this year and also made the semi-final of the European Championship. And he showed in that tournament that he can do it against the big boys. He can rise up against the real big hitters in darts. He was 7-0 down to Gerwen Price in that tournament, and he overcame him, winning 10 of the next 11 legs to win 10-8. So he knows he can do the business against the big boys. He's in the same quarter of the draw as Van Gerwen, but I don't think that will faze him. He can't meet Michael Van Gerwen until the quarterfinals, so if he can get to that point, it'll be a decent run, and he would fancy himself as well. But in the opening round, he faces Scott Williams, who can be a danger, or Haruki Muramasa, and these two actually played Haruki Muramasa and Danny Noppert in the Grand Slam only a few weeks ago, where Danny Noppert got the better of him. So there'll be a lot of confidence headed into this tournament, and he could be a real danger to that quarter of the draw. And if it is a Michael Van Gerwen and Noppert quarter final, then it should be a good test for Michael, and who knows, we could see a semi-final spot for Danny Noppert. Don't count him out.
With the form of reigning world champion Michael Smith questionable at best, there may be the opportunity for somebody in the top quarter of this year's draw to take advantage and forge a run to the semi-finals. And for many darts pundits and fans, that man looks likely to be Rob Cross. Voltage, a former world champion himself, of course, in 2018 during his iconic breakout year, has struggled to replicate that at Ali Pali since. However, the stars do seem to be aligning for him somewhat. He's had a good year in 2023, won a Pro Tour event, won a European Tour title, and made a couple of finals elsewhere as well, the Match Play and the Masters. So all in all, a really strong 2023. And everybody knows that his form has been trending in the right direction for some time now. He's a really strong scorer and a really strong combination finisher, which is a pretty lethal combination. And with being in Michael Smith's section, he could realistically be the favourite for all of his games, all the way up to the semi-finals. I actually think he's more likely to face one of Chris Stobie or Ross Smith at the quarterfinal stage, which for me would be a bit of a pick'em contest. So I'm reluctant to say that there's any value left in Cross's price to win the quarter or the title. However, I will not be surprised one bit if he does go on and make it into the final 4. The question will be whether he can go toe-to-toe with the likes of a Van Gerwen or a Humphreys over 13 sets in a final. He's definitely got the quality and his game is in a really good place. But for me, the juice has probably gone out of the Cross price. However, I'm expecting a strong showing from Voltage this year.
Johnny Clayton has had a strange year on the darting front. He was a runner-up in the World Match Play at Blackpool in July, but his form since then has completely fell off a cliff. In the 4 big tournaments since the match play, he's gone out at the last 32 stage. That includes the Grand Slam group stage, where in 3 games his best average was still under 91. But Johnny Clayton is a major winner in his own right, let's not forget. That was in 2021, where he was pretty rampant across the board. He won the Grand Prix, the Masters and the Premier League in 2021, and as a result has been going off a much shorter price than his current odds of 50-1 for previous World Championships. He is 50-1 for World Championship glory this year, and has somewhat of a straightforward draw early doors. Steve Lennon or Owen the Master Bates in round 2 should be winnable for Clayton before a third round game with Christoph Ratajski. Likely to be Rod Cross thereafter, where I'd very much fancy Cross to see off the ferret, but the world number 9 will certainly need to turn around his recent poor form ahead of the annual pilgrimage to Ali Pali.
Damon Heta comes into this tournament at a career high of world number 10, and in my opinion this has been a bit of a breakout year for the Australian on TV. He's made 3 individual quarterfinals, 4 if you include the World Cup of Darts, which is obviously paired with Simon Whitlock. Quarter-final of the World Match Play where he lost to Luke Humphrey, and we know how good he's been this year, winning three majors recently. He also made the quarter-final of the Grand Slam of Darts where he faced an electric Rob Cross, and the quarter-finals only a few weeks ago at the Players' Championship finals where he'd have been disappointed to lose to Ryan Joyce. He would have fancied himself coming through that tie, but it's still a pretty decent year. He's also won a title on the floor, and I think Damon Heta has got the game to trouble anybody. There's a lot of confidence oozing through his body. When you just hear him talk in interviews, he knows he's got the game. He's expecting big things from himself. And there's no reason why he can't go deep in this tournament. He is in the same quarter as Michael Van Gerwen, but outside of Michael Van Gerwen, he would fancy himself in this quarter. He kicks off either against Martin Lukman or Holpai Puha from also down under. I think I'll be wary of either of those players. I do think Martin Lukman comes through that time. Martin has shown actually that he's a pretty dangerous player, so Damon Heta would have to be focused, but he's got so much experience now on the TV stage. He's probably been disappointing on the TV stage when you consider what he's done on the floor since he got his tour card, but he's performing a lot better now. He's going deeper in tournaments, and I think this could be a real breakout World Championship for the Australian. He's never made it to the quarter-final, but I think this could be the year for the Australian to put that right.
Ask a dart fan who they would most like to see win a World Championship before they retire, and I would wager that a good chunk of them would say Dave Chisnall. Chizzy has been at the top of the sport for the best part of a decade now, but he's the perennial nearly man. So many finals and semi-finals, yet he's still to convert any of them into a major win. And it really would be a travesty if this man was to go through his career without winning a major title, such as the talent he possesses. Who could forget his 5-0 demolition of Michael Van Gerwen in the 2021 World Championship quarterfinals? It was about as flawless a performance as you will ever see. However, it was predictably followed up by a semi-final loss to Gary Anderson. That is kind of where we're at with Chizzy, isn't it? Everybody's willing him to go and do it, but you do start to wonder whether he ever will. In terms of 2023, it's been very disappointing on the major front. Lots of first-round exits, World Match Play, World Grand Prix, UK Open. Didn't get out of the groups in the Grand Slam. Yes, recently he had a promising run to the third round in the Players' Championship finals, but he'll be bitterly disappointed with how he's performed on the big TV stage, particularly given how well it's gone away from there. He's won 2 Players' Championship events and 3 Euro Tours, so the 5 titles actually makes 2023 his most prolific year to date. In terms of his draw, he's in with Luke Humphreys, the tournament favourite, but he wouldn't meet him until at least the quarterfinal stage, while the hardest game before that is likely to be Nathan Aspinall. That's nothing for fear for Chizzy, so he can genuinely expect to run to at least the quarterfinals, and we all know how dangerous he is. I'm afraid I have to say that history tells me not to back Dave Chisnall to win the World Championship or any major for that matter. However, Chizzy, I'm wishing you the best of luck. Go get it done.
Dirk Van Dijk is injured. That's pretty blunt, but unfortunately true. This time last year, the big Dutchman was as low as 25-1 to win the World Championship. This year, he is 100-1. An injured throwing hand has played havoc with his form for the most part of this year, with first-round exits in the last 3 televised tournaments. In fact, Dirk Van Dijvenbode's last 5 TV averages are 80, 77, 83 and 85. Not very good. You've got to feel for Dirk, who would certainly been on many a list of potential breakthrough major winners at the start of this year, but injury has put paid to that. Dirk is in quarter 2 at Ali Pali, which is pretty open in terms of the betting, but he has a very tough draw in round 2 against either Keegan Brown or Boris Kirchmer. With the form and injury that Dirk has, you wouldn't be surprised if either of those went off actually favourite to beat Dirk in the second round. We'll find out on Friday the 22nd when Dirk makes his appearance. Hopefully he can return to form, as he's a very entertaining player when at his best, smashes in the 180s for fun. But unfortunately, I'm predicting another early exit for Dirk and a potential break from darts completely in early 2024 to recover from his injury and get back to top form.
James Wade, many people's pick for the greatest ever player to never win the World Championship. Could it happen this year? Well, he's in a really, really tough quarter of the draw. He's in the same quarter as Peter Wright, as Gary Anderson and as Gerwen Price. But James Wade is coming into this with a bit of form. He made the final of the European Championship in Dortmund, losing to Peter Wright. He also made it the semi-final of the Grand Slam of Darts only a few weeks ago, losing to the eventual champion Luke Humphreys, and also made the quarter-final of the Players' Championship finals, once again losing to Luke Humphreys. And there's no shame in that. Many people say Luke is the best player in the world at the moment. And it's a bit of an interesting one because James Wade himself has said he's not playing well, but he's still getting to the latter stages of tournaments, even though in his own mind he's not playing well, which pretty much sums up James Wade for you. And I remember a couple of years ago he made the semi-final of the World Championship by not playing well. I don't think he'd averaged over 90 before he got to the semi-final and eventually lost to Michael Smith. So James Wade doesn't have to be putting in these tumpless averages to do well and to go deep in tournaments. He's always a threat. And now that he's in form, he must be getting some confidence from the form that he's in. And he's a real, real danger. And just to show the resilience of the man, a few months ago there was the big story that James Wade had fallen out for the top 16 for the first time in a decade, and then what does he go and do? A few days later, makes the final of the European Championship. You can never count out the machine James Wade. He'll face either Matt Campbell or Lawrence Ilagan in his first game rather, which could be a difficult game to be honest, no matter who he faces there, Lawrence or Matt Campbell. But I do think his experience will be a little bit too much, and something I'm excited for, a potential James Wade and Luke Littler clash, which we could get because they're in the same quarter.
It's fair to say that so far 2023 has been a year to forget for Joe Cullen, and that comes after such a fantastic 2022, a breakout year for him in many ways, winning that Masters title, forcing his way into the Premier League, and then coming within a dart of winning it. And, it was a cruel way for Cullen to fall short in the biggest game of his career. That not being selected for the Premier League in 2023 has undoubtedly hurt him, and it seems to have impacted his performance. It's been a pretty forgettable year in terms of results, although it should be said that he made the Final Four in the World Grand Prix and the World Match Play, which are arguably the two biggest events of the year to date. So there is a danger that we overlook him a tad, particularly as we haven't seen him all that recently. He opted not to attend the Grand Slam of Darts qualifier. Quite a strange move that really, given the value of the tournament. But Cullen himself admitting that his mindset probably quite isn't there at the moment. However, if you can't raise yourself for the World Championships, then what can you raise your game for? And we all know that a fit and firing Cullen is a danger to anybody. He's produced some of his best ever performances on that Alexandra Palace stage and not always had the luck that he's deserved. I'm thinking of Flygate. I'm thinking of his classic with Michael van Gerwen a couple of years ago. So he would be due a bit of luck. And in this quarter where everybody's talking about Luke Humphreys, perhaps Joe Cullen is the kind of player that will pose Humphreys his biggest challenge. It would be nice to see Cullen at least bring his best form to Alexandra Palace. It's not been a great year for him, but it's not too late to turn that around.
Dimitri Van Bergh is quite possibly the clearest example of the sheer strength in depth in darts at the moment. As talented as anyone in the game, a World Match Play winner, a back-to-back World Youth Champion, still only young at 29 years old in darts terms, but he is very much in the category of players that haven't quite kicked on to the next level. He was ranked number 15 coming into the Worlds last year, and he is ranked number 15 coming into the World Championships again this year. I've always had him down as a big game player. He loves the clutch moments and pressure finishing, combination finishing, but he hasn't quite delivered his best game often enough. He didn't even qualify for the Grand Slam last month and has only made it to the latter stages of one tournament this year, and that was the UK Open way back in March. On a positive note, Van den Bergh has a fantastic record at Ali Pali, a semi-finalist last year, a twice quarter-finalist before that. I mean, you could make the following statement about 10 or 12 players behind the top 3 or 4 big guns in the betting list, and that includes Dimitri Van den Bergh. Very talented on his day, can beat anyone, but just not doing it consistently enough at the moment. That said, his odds of 100 to 1 to lift the trophy at Alexandra Palace do look a touch big in comparison with the likes of Bunting, Clayton, Rock, Littler, Van Veen, Ross Smith and Cullen, who are all shorter prices than Dimitri. Of those listed, I'd have Dimitri as a more likely winner than those guys, but Dimitri is available at 100 to 1 and he's a bigger price than all of those listed. So good luck to Dimitri. He'll need to up his form to go close.
Ross Smith, the European champion of 2022. He comes into this tournament having won 2 titles on the floor this year. And it's been an interesting year because even though he's not really gone deep in TV tournaments and he'd be disappointed with that, he's playing well and he's playing arguably better than he ever has. I've spoken to Ross a few times and he's somebody who does look at his stats. He goes on Darts Oracle and really looks at all of his stats, his figures, how he's playing. And he's playing statistically better than he ever has. So I think he will come into this tournament with a lot of confidence. He's in that top quarter with the out of form world number 1 and world champion Michael Smith. And he'll face in his opening tie either Niels Zonneveld or Darren Webster, which no disrespect to either of those two, but I think it's a pretty decent tie for Ross Smith. And if his scoring power is there, I mean, we know he can hit 180s with the very, very best of them. He can go deep. He lost out last year to Dirk Van Dijk in what was arguably the game of the tournament, but he'll be looking to go a bit deeper this year, and I actually think he really could do that. I mean, I think he's a danger in this first quarter. Like I said, Michael Smith is not in the best of form. He could face Chris Dobie in the third round, and to me that is a toss-up. So there's a real opportunity here for Ross Smith, and I think even though he's not done as well on television as he would have hoped, like I said, he's a guy who looks at his stats, he's level-headed, he speaks well, and when I was speaking with him, he's got the confidence because he knows he's playing well, and a confident Ross Smith is a dangerous Ross Smith. So if you tip him as your dark horse for this event, I think you might be doing well because he could really go deep and he could come through that first quarter.